This is LBC from Global, leading Britain's conversation with Nick Abbott.
Hello, boys. Well, let's get back to it.
Some texts and tweets and such from last night. Jem the Cavi says, an electrician... This is in relation to how much doctors get paid. He says, an electrician charged me £60 an hour to fix a small electrical fault today. It cost me £300.
What?
Wow. 300 quid. That's, so £60 an hour and £300. That's like that's 10 hours to fix a small electrical fault. Can you believe that? AC emails, puffin jackets are a thing. We were talking about the kids, which these days they've taken up the hobby of nicking other kids' jackets. And they particularly like the ones that are made out of geese. He says, puffin jackets are a thing. Mine is stuffed full of the down of 1,000 Himalayan puffins. None of your woke clothing here. He ain't doing the wokey-cokey.
Okie dokie.
Stephen in Darlington says the Tories are bringing out that Labour... Shall I start this again?
No.
Stephen from Darlington says... The Tories are bringing out that Labour note from 2010 when they joked there is no money left. It makes me laugh as the national debt was 800 billion back then. Now it's 2.5 trillion. Where has all the money gone? Where's the money gone, Fishy?
I'm gripping it.
He's gripping it. I bet he bloomin' is. Yeah, that's a joke. Those notes that the Chancellors of the Exchequer leave to each other, there ain't no money left, that's a joke. It's like a long-running joke. But now there actually is no money left. Ricky in Hull... The screen is jumping around like I'm doing a show at a disco. Can you add them at the bottom, not the top, please? Because otherwise it causes me brain ache. All these people who keep messaging me. How do they get my number? Ricky in Hull... Hey, Ricky, you're so fine. You're so fine. You blow my mind. Ricky in Hull says, can I get an early letter in for the next year's A to Z because Britain might have to recolonise the United States if Donald Trump gets in. I'll use it as an R for recolonise.
Don't be rude.
If Donald Trump gets in, he's the President of the United States of America. Don't ever talk to the President like that.
Don't talk to me that way. Don't talk to... I'm the President of the United States. Don't ever talk to the President that way.
He could be the next ruler of the free world. What could possibly go right? David says, I remember mendacity. It's making a comeback this year. The Tory manifesto is going to be the epitome of mendacity. I like that, but it's yours if you want it. The epitome of mendacity. Well, I'm calling Titchy suit size the stick insect of mendacity. Ain't that right, Titchy?
Under my leadership,
priorities.
The government's priorities...
your priority. Yeah, I know. It doesn't work unless you give us those little puppy dog eyes, so hurt and sad. Del in Boreham Wood says, you're wrong, Nick. What? You're wrong, Nick. Reform will take votes from Conservative and Labour, and then they will go into a coalition with the Tories to keep Labour out. That's their plan, says Del. I bet it's not. Go into coalition. Wow, they might actually make 10% of the votes between them. Stan in Hull says, no problem if there's flooding in Richmond. Titchy always wears his half-mast trousers so his suit wouldn't have got wet. Well, but that is just a fact. Always piling on with these jokes about how tall he is. I mean, it's not very nice to make fun of other people's appearance. But in his case, let's make an exception. I mean, it's all we've got, isn't it? It's all we got left. They've taken everything else. Not that I'm complaining or anything.
Whinging and whining and moaning.
0345 6060 973. Golders Green. Hello, Mohammed.
Hello.
A suspiciously keen caller, yes?
Yes, hi. My question is there any changes in food banks since Rishi Sunak is in government?
Is there any changes on food banks since Rishi Sunak is in government? Is that your question?
Yes.
I'm sorry, but we're only accepting questions about farming. 0345 6060 973. This one says, Nick A., regarding the poll question about Sunak et al., and honestly, I think the one brackets 1, is not a percentage but the page number. Does that make any sense?
No.
I think it's 2 in a row on the Nicky Abbott Show. Regarding the poll question about Sunak et al. And honesty... Oh, right, there was this poll yesterday that I was reading the results of this poll yesterday. And the question was, do you think that the current regime are trustworthy and honest in every way, shape and form? And people who said no amounted to 99% of those who expressed a preference. 99% of those who expressed a preference said no. Not now, not ever, never. Just a point of order. Excuse, my glamorous assistant, can you add them at the bottom, please, because it makes the page jump up and down. Thank you, appreciate it.
Thank you.
Matthew says, October surely unlikely... There it goes again. Matthew tweets, October surely unlikely, as that would mean curtailing, skiving, conference season. OK, you know what? I'm going to go through these and I'm going to edit them myself before reading them out on the air. Would that be a good idea?
Yes.
Yeah, a very, very good idea. I'll get the hang of this eventually, don't you worry about that. I posed a question before the new news. Who do you think does not believe that the Rwanda scheme would stop the boats? Who do you think that is? Exactly, correctamundo. Titchy suit size herself. According to documents, Fishy Sunak was unsure that the government's scheme to send migrants to Rwanda would stop channel crossings when he was Chancellor.
What?
Number 10 papers from March of last year. No, wait, what year is it now? He said, looking bottom right on the computer screen just to check. No, this was a couple of years ago now. Because he was the Prime Minister last year in March. Can you believe that? I mean, let's just stop and pause and think about the situation that we find ourselves in. Rishi Sunak is the Prime Minister of this country. Can you believe that? I mean, just take a moment and think about it. Number 10 papers from March of 2022, a month before the plan was announced by the then Prime Minister Bodger Johnson.
Yeah. Wait a minute.
Showed that Mr. Sunak was not convinced of the plan's effectiveness. Any thoughts, Bodge? Bodge is busy right now trying to think of something to say for his next Daily Mail column. And as an indication of how out of ideas he is, or how he couldn't really care less anymore, this week's column is about how dreadful it is that we can't burn our Christmas trees in our hearths. I mean, does he know anyone who doesn't live in a mansion? Who has a hearth these days, apart from swells like him? They're as common as moats. And he's got one of those too. But back to Titchy Suit Size, who became the Prime Minister of this country, if you can believe it, in October 2022. And he made Rwanda one of his top priorities.
It's the country's number one priority.
It isn't. Is not now, never has been, never will be. Doesn't matter how many times you say it. It doesn't matter how many times you do one of those toe-curlingly embarrassing videos where you look down the camera in that sort of scared puppy dog eyes, like, you know, he's just pooped on the carpet. Like, you know those eyes that the puppy dog gives you when he's just pooped on the carpet? That's him all over. Doesn't matter how many times you give us those eyes, Titchy, we ain't believing you. Not now, not ever, never. He said that he has made the Rwanda plan his top priority. The documents suggest, however, that Sunak felt hotels were cheaper than reception centres to house migrants, and he was concerned about the even higher cost of sending asylum seekers to Africa, and he wanted to limit the numbers. If at first they tell you who they are, believe them first time. Is that guy still on hold? Hey, Mohammed. Hey, Mohammed. I think he's passed out. Couldn't believe it. All he wanted was some help with food banks. And I don't happen to have those figures to hand. I'm surprised that he thought I did. It's not a library, mate. You're going to buy that book? The documents revealed the Chancellor, this is a quote, the Chancellor wants to pursue smaller volumes initially, with 500 flown to Rwanda in the first year of the scheme instead of the proposed 1,500, because he didn't think it was value for money. And prepare yourself for this bit. Hold on to something firm. He was described as believing that the Rwanda scheme deterrent would not work. What? Wouldn't work. I knew it. I told you that he didn't care about small boats and he doesn't care about crossings and he's pushing a ruinously expensive, bizarrely cruel policy that he admitted wouldn't work. And for why? To get votes. You know, it's the same thing as those so-called influencers on the internet do to get likes. Do you remember that bloke called Mizzy who charged into people's homes recording their reaction to get likes on social media? It's the same thing. They're both in the market for lols and likes. And at this point, we might as well get Mizzy to have a bash at running the country. I mean, it couldn't get worse. I bet he'd get a higher proportion of people that say he's trustworthy than the 1% who said that of the Sunak regime in the poll that I was talking about yesterday. 1%. I bet Coco the Clown could do better than that. And this is the reason why. Absolutely nothing he says or does rings right. Titchy Sunak is like a giant deception generating machine. Everything he says seems to be the opposite of the truth. He's permanently awkward looking in the company of non-millionaires, and he can't talk to ordinary people without coming over weird. I mean, King Charles is properly weird, from a weird family, and he had a weird upbringing, and he even looks less odd in other people's company than that stick insect of mendacity that's the Dreer leader. But it's worse than that, because the document seen by the BBC, the BBC, say the quiet part out loud. The documents say that Number 10 suggested that Sunak needed to, quotes, consider his popularity with the base over the Rwanda plan. In other words, stop talking it down. Think about the base. Yeah, never mind about it working or being value for money or being the right policy. Just thinking about the thumbs up you'll get from the mouth breathers who love to dump on anyone else that's less fortunate than themselves in order to feel better. His popularity with the base. I mean, how low can they go? Talking about people here. The document said the then-Chancellor, Titchy, was reluctant to fund Greek-style reception centres at a good... Well, you know what the Greeks do?
Disgusting.
Exactly. In a reception centre with cartoons on the wall. Can you believe that? The then-Chancellor, Titchy, was reluctant to fund these Greek-style reception centres at a cost of £3.5 million a day to house migrants in favour of hotels. And now, of course, doing that is his number one priority.
It's the country's number one priority.
Yeah, it isn't. A source close to the Prime Minister said he was always fully behind the principle of the scheme, but needed to ensure money was appropriately spent in his role as Chancellor. Appropriately spent. He's the man who presided over an £11 billion loss to us poor dopes who pay taxes by not insuring the national debt he built up against interest rate rises, which coincidentally had the effect of transferring vast amounts of our money to the banks in interest. Funny that. And that doesn't even touch the billions of pounds of ours he blew on fraud and error and spraying friends of the regime with our cash. Perfect gaslighting. He wasn't against the Rwanda plan, despite what you read about him saying that he was against the Rwanda plan. He just needed to ensure that money was appropriately spent in his role as Chancellor. Isn't he an absolute dream? I mean, it's a form of torture at this point. It is psychological warfare. You are not going mad. Keep telling yourself this. It's not you, it's them. And the Shadow Home Secretary, Yvette Cooper, said the Prime Minister knew the plan was incredibly costly and wouldn't work and resisted it while he was Chancellor. But he is so weak, he's now agreed to write cheques to Rwanda for £400 million without sending a single person there in a desperate attempt to shore up his leadership or consider the popularity with the base. And, of course, Sunak reiterated his support for the Rwanda plan on Tuesday, saying, I'm focused on delivering on my commitment to stop the boats and get flights off the ground to Rwanda. Working day and night to stop the boats, it's his number one priority. Number one. So I'll come back with full details of that whole food banks issue and a full report on your desk first thing in the morning. 0345 6060 973, text 84850, email... I tripped myself up now. I'll have to go back to the beginning and start again. 0345 6060. It's like the alphabet. I can't start in the middle. I've got to go from the beginning, otherwise it just won't work. But it's a damning report from June last year. See, I'm not exaggerating. The danger that you might have going into hospital is not from junior doctors standing on a picket line. It's from the incompetence of the management who are running the show. Bob Behrens, the Health Service Ombudsman for England, pointed to what he called a gaping hole between policies aimed at improving patient safety and real-life experience on the ground, with hospitals, he said, routinely failing to accept their errors. These are the same hospitals who are now making notes and recording what they say is every negative outcome for junior doctors striking. The same ones as cover up the evidence of their own mistakes. I mean, I don't recognise this country anymore, do you? The report found the physical harm patients suffer following mistakes is often made worse by inadequate, defensive and insensitive responses from NHS trusts. Now, what does that remind you of? That rhymes with the post office. He said some NHS trusts delay their replies for months or years. He said there is a culture of cover-up. There's no point pretending that everybody is nice and does the right thing. Talking of management. And that's just fine for this lot in power. I mean, did they issue a government crackdown, a cross-party investigation, action on the ground? Is the government gripping it? Nothing. Nothing at all. But now that some of the least valued people in society, junior doctors, are taking action that, while helping themselves to make a living, might also save what's left of our NHS by stopping the brain drain to better run countries, now the NHS trusts and the government have got their notepads out and are going to publicise every single little thing that goes wrong. I mean, is there anybody else saying this stuff, or is it just me? I mean, is everybody else in the media just parroting the same old lines about doctors are being greedy to want a 35% pay rise, when what they're talking about is a rise from £15 an hour to £20 an hour, to be paid after 5 years of training, about the same as a cashier in Tesco's? You've got to keep your wits around you at all times and don't believe a word that anybody says. Always fact check. Thanks for all these messages I couldn't get through. I only got a brief 3-hour show. If you missed any of tonight's programme, you can listen back on catch-up on Global Player. You can rewind live radio on Global Player. If you ain't got it, it's available for free from your App Store or globalplayer.com. I'll be back Friday, Saturday, Sunday night. No, I'll be back tonight at 10 o'clock. Coming up at 4, Ollie Dugmore. Right now, Clyde Ball.
Nick, thank you. After the news, Rishi Sunak has pledged to cut benefits and government spending to fund tax cuts before and after the general election. Is that the vote winner that he thinks it is? Is it a promise that can be believed? Also, rat and fox infestations are happening all across the UK. We'll talk about that. And 15 years since Woolworths shops closed their doors for the final time in Britain. A new report takes a look at what's happened to those stores. We'll find out more a little bit later on. Plus, we'll look at the comments of the NatWest chair, who says it's not that difficult to get on the housing ladder. That and much more coming up after the news at 1, next on LBC.
On your radio, on Global Player, and
Play.
This is LBC with Nick Abbott. Call 0345 6060 973. Tweet at LBC. Text 84850.
You've got a good, your mind is a little bit, you know what I mean, three-dimensional.
No, I have no idea what you mean, Hippie. 0345 6060 973. Let's have Peterborough. Hello, Gary.
Hey, how you doing? You
Good,
all right?
thanks. Yes, very well.
Okay, so just a quick one. Old Titchy suit, whatever you call it, Titchy suit, did you call him?
Titchy suit size.
That's it, Titchy suit size. Listen, if he really wants to stop the boats, he's got one powerful weapon. It's called the Navy. Why is he not deploying the Navy?
Yeah. Let's blow those people out of the water, push them back out to sea, let them drown. Or what then?
No, just turn them back, send them back. At the end of the day, the reason they can come over this country is the Geneva Convention. And the Geneva Convention says that they must seek safety in the first port of origin from their native land.
No, that's incorrect.
How come?
Well, because it's incorrect, Gary. What you just said is not true. Ask me why again, because it's not. It's not true. Just because you say something with confidence does not make it so.
No, I appreciate that, but where are you getting your information? Because that's directly from Geneva Convention.
Oh, really? You've read the Geneva Convention?
No, I've been relayed the information.
By
a reliable source.
Like GB News? Bingo! No, Gary, I'm afraid you have been sadly misinformed. Try cross-referencing. Derek in Aberdeen says, if the UK and America get dragged into World War III, there won't be elections in either country. Well, that is true, yeah, which does mean that you can probably set your watch by it by the end of this year. World War III will be upon us.
Oh, no.
Yeah, I expect so. I mean, there's got to be some way in which our next election is cancelled for our safety. And the next but one American election is definitely going to be cancelled for their safety, whether they like it or not. That is if you know who wins.
I love the poorly educated.
Because the poorly educated have voted for him in large numbers, you know. The dingalings. Your husband is out of control, Melania.
I don't care.
She's not that bothered. Gordon says it was in the news today, Nick, that NASA have revealed that the planet Neptune is in fact the same colour as... You know, there was a point in my life when, and it was almost like a memo went round, and it would have to have been a telegram because the internet hadn't been invented yet. But the pronunciation of one of the planets changed overnight. And it may have been because there was some news event at the time in relation to it, although I can't imagine what it could possibly have been. But suddenly news readers were saying Uranus, and that is definitely not how we were pronouncing it before that moment. Maybe they just realised that they were being sniggered at when they said it the old way. But anyway, the news is, Gordon says, it was in the news today, Nick, that NASA have revealed that the planet Neptune is, in fact, the same colour as Uranus. This sounds important, says Gordon. Now, it's very difficult to tell whether that was just a build-up to a joke, in which case this sounds important was like an extra, an unnecessary extra tagged onto the end. You should have ended on Uranus, but it doesn't work if I pronounce it like that. But thanks for the good news, Gordon. I'll keep that in mind. Christine says, Sunak sunk tack. S-U-N-K, new word T-A-K, sunk tack. Stop. Is that your name for him? Anyway, I'll just read through and we'll see what we get. Sunk tack, stop the boats, question mark. He couldn't stop children crossing a road to school if that was his new job. He'll need his millions after he is no longer PM because no logical person or company would employ him, says Christine. Well, I'm not sure that's exactly right. I bet he'll do just fine. Just fine. Don't you worry about a thing. Let's have... hello, Mike.
Hi, Nick, yeah. Interesting this. Do you remember last night you predicted that Sunak would separate the British election from the American one?
Yes.
So as to use the same tempers that Trump was going to use.
Uh-huh.
And it fascinated me a bit. It's sort of got under my skin, so I did a bit of digging today.
Right.
And it's quite amazing what I found. Firstly, that everybody knew the government's raised the spending cap for the election from 19 million to 35.
Yep.
The Labour Party says best possible outcome is 17 million for them, but of course the Tories can get 35 million, no bother at all.
Yeah.
So then I did some digging in the Financial Times, and this is a quote from the Financial Times. The government is paving the way for UK political parties to bombard voters with unsolicited calls, texts and emails ahead of the next general election through changes to data protection laws.
Yeah. I know, it's almost like I'm a seer. That long-haired lover from The Guardian, George Monbiot, he wrote a column about this very thing today. It's like I can see into the future, Mike. It's frightening for me. Would you like to know next week's lottery numbers?
That would be very handy.
Yeah, wouldn't it just?
But they also went on that they've made it possible for more UK citizens living abroad to donate to the political party.
Right.
And they've also increased the amount that you can donate anonymously to political parties.
Yes. And this is all the above-the-counter stuff. What's below the counter will blow your mind. I mean, we've already been through it with Brexit. Parties that had reached their spending limit just gave a massive amount of money to some other person who coincidentally spent it on the exact same campaign that they were running. Odd.
It's weird, and this is gerrymandering of extraordinary proportion.
Huge, yeah.
And it's out there in the public. It's out there in the public zone. Although I don't know how many people would pick up on it.
Mike, it hasn't even started yet. I mean, this is what we know now. Just wait for the next few months. Your social media feed is going to change out of all recognition. You're going to be bombarded with so much stuff that you'll give up not believing it, and that's the plan. What would Donald Trump do? It's always with this regime. It's always guided by the principle, what would Donald Trump do? He would just lie, and he would lie, and he'd lie, and he'd lie, and you just get tired fighting the lies. You can't fact check everything, and so you just like, almost like physically, you just like lay back and let the lies just pour over you.
They'll do well with this one, Nick, I'll tell you.
All right. Okay, thanks a lot, Mike. Hey, I see he's done homework. Appreciate it.
Thank you.
I've done homework too. Yeah, George Monbiot out of The Guardian, you know, one of them wokey-cokies.
Okie dokie.
He wrote about this today, as a matter of fact. I was saying yesterday that they're not going to make our election and the Americans' election abut each other. Use that phrase.
Disgusting.
Awful. They're not going to abut each other because the same people that are going to be trying to squeeze Donald Trump's fat frame into the White House.
Don't be rude.
Are going to be the exact same people who are going to try to prize the stick insect of mendacity into number 10.
This government.
Exactly. And so they'll be hard-pressed to work on two campaigns at the same time, because producing a tsunami of lies and fake news and all these videos and with the bots and, all of that, particularly the bots.
Affirmative.
All of that stuff, very, very difficult and, massive computing power. And so they probably want one huge campaign at a time. And they'd learn from that campaign to leverage their knowledge onto the next one, as they learnt from Brexit and they learnt from the last time that they got Trump in. I mean, it's all the same people on both sides of the Atlantic and pretty much everywhere else on Earth. I mean, I imagine they don't have much sway in China, but everywhere else. Maybe not. Well, I think it's probably coming from Russia in large amounts. But I would imagine, knowing nothing at all about the subject that I'm talking about, that they would not want to work on two massive campaigns at the same time, being, as they are, the same small number of people. So I would bet that the regime in this country and would want to keep our elections well apart from the Americans. I mean, there's no actual justifiable reason for doing that. I mean, our process has absolutely nothing to do with the Americans. I mean, it doesn't make it more difficult here to have an election if the Americans are doing it as well, because at a minimum, they're 3,000 miles away. But I bet they do it anyway. And then you'd have to think, why? Always be suspicious.
Nick Abbot on LBC. Call 0345 6060 973.
I'm taking you off the air. I think you're having a breakdown.
Well, it's a very, very trying time. Christine says, in relation to the video that I was talking about last night that Donald Trump has released about, it's just so weird. If you haven't seen it yet, then take a moment. It's a couple of minutes long, and it's worth looking at just to give you an idea of where we are as a human race. I think that the human race is taking the wrong turn somewhere. It sounds like, weirdly, it sounds like it's being voiced over by Richard Nixon. I swear it sounds exactly like him, like some AI bot has produced the sound of Richard Nixon. And it's along the lines of, America was in peril, so God made Donald Trump. And it goes on like that for 2 minutes. Donald Trump works 40 hours by Tuesday and then does another 6 days' work. It's like that. It's absolutely incredible. I cannot imagine how daft you'd be to swallow that. But, you know, there's hundreds of millions of them. But Christine says, Trump godly. Did they mean ugly and it auto-corrected?
Don't be rude.
That's very rude, Christine. He does not like rudeness. He's a stickler for that. Jim emails, Donald Trump is very religious. Has been since he heard that there was a book of prophets. Problem is he thought it was a book of prophets. Get it? Mike says the Reform Party is the anti-triggers broom of British politics. It's had 18 names, but still the same head and still the same handle. Brackets, The Times. I have no idea what that means. What's an anti-triggers broom? What does that mean? This is my show and I don't understand it. Kitty the Florist texts in relation to a story that I was reading yesterday about the checks that have yet to be put in place to keep us safe, essentially, from what might come from Europe. We have no checks at the border now. I mean, the government's first party should actually be keeping us safe, but that went out the window ages ago. And so because the regime is so inept and incompetent and apparently couldn't see coming that leaving the European Union would mean that we would, leave the European Union, so they haven't put in place all the checks that the EU side have put in place about, they want to see if meat is actually from a cow or from something else, etc. And the flowers people were freaking out because these checks will mean that where they used to just get waved through because we used to be a part of the European Union, the EU. Now we ain't, and so these checks that our government has put off over and over and over again, they're going to have to come in eventually because we have actually left the European Union. I mean, they're going to have to act like we have eventually. And when they do, of course, fresh flowers, they don't really like sitting around on a lorry for ages and ages while they go through what I believe are 59 different checks now, or stages is what they call them. They used to be in the high teens, the number of stages that you would have to go through to get flowers through to the border. Now it's 59, something like that. So all them flowers, they're going to be dead by the time they arrive. I mean, you might as well shoot them right in the field. And on that subject, Kitty the Florist says, Nick, importing flowers may not seem important until people get married or die. They are the things that people don't skimp on. Yeah, but what happens to flowers is also going to happen to fruit and veg and meat and all of the rest of it. Cheese. So, I would stock up right now, if I were you, before the shelves are bare. Bound to happen. And it's because the government are concerned that the shelves will be bare that they haven't put the checks on. That and the fact that it's going to increase inflation. Because none of that's cheap. Having stuff for standing around in a lorry for 3 days because we insisted that everything must be checked because we thought that leaving the European Union would be a great idea. How's it working out so far, by the way?
Oh, fabulous.
Great to know. Cheshire. Hello, John.
Hi, the Americans got involved with the Conservative Party and brought in the checks about security and voting.
Yeah, voter ID. Yeah, that's a cute idea that the Republicans had that the Conservatives nicked. Yes.
Yeah, the Conservatives will probably nick the idea of reducing the number of polling places where you can go and vote the next election.
I would be surprised
harder
if they didn't, to be honest.
Yeah, so where you could go and vote round the corner, the next for the old people and traditional Labour voters, they'll have to get a bus to the next town.
Yeah. They'll close all for our safety. You understand? They'll close all of the voting booths in cities and move them out into the middle of fields. No address. It's just you make a turn at the tree on the left, and then the abandoned barn on the right, and you keep going for 3 miles. There's no roads, so you'll have to bring your wellies, and it'll be at the end of the track.
And you won't be able to take a fflask with you to have a coffee or a tea.
That's
you
right.
Won't be allowed to drink.
Yeah, exactly. No drinking and no place holding in the queue when you need to go and relieve yourself. None of that.
So you go to the back of the queue then and bring your ID.
That's right. Yeah.
And if you're of a certain, if your face doesn't fit, they'll arrest you.
You can register a vote for the Labour Party, but you'll have to do so at the nearest Labour-specific polling booth, which is handily located on Uranus.
Yeah. Oh, that terrible place. That's the rear end of the world, that is.
Yeah, that's right. These are the jokes, folks. A listener with material.
Oh, no.
A good one, John. Thanks for that. 0345 6060 973. Uranus is the rear end of the world. That is just a fact. Mark in Streatham says, the Royal Navy can't hire enough sailors for their new frigates. That's true. If only we had a fresh supply of men of fighting age with seafaring experience. Where's Uncle Nigel and his binoculars when you need them? Correct. That's right. Where are they, Nige? Where are they? Can you see them? I could be appalled, but I've decided to be amused. Archway. Hello, James.
Hello, Nick. Last year, you remember, in 223, you said, "Oh, I don't like the sea at all." Now, you were right. It didn't turn out well. So I'm asking you, what do you think of this year?
Well, I have the same idea as I had for 2022.
Yeah.
And it was sitting.
Good.
All right, it was sitting there looking at the numbers as written on the page, and I thought, well, that looks quite good, doesn't it? Or 2020, that looks quite good as well. And it didn't really turn out very well, did it?
Well, 22 did.
You think?
Yes, well, we had heat waves. We had about 5 heat waves that year, didn't we?
Oh, is that all you're concerned about? The weather? Is that what you're asking me? What the weather's going to be?
Yeah.
Right.
Well, I mean, nothing anything to do with politics. Just the weather. That was marvelous year.
The weather.
5 heat waves. Yeah.
See, I thought you were talking about. I thought you were asking me to predict how it was going to go politically, but you're actually asking me what I think the weather is going to do.
Yeah. What kind of a year is it going to? What kind of a summer we're going to have?
Well, let me ask an expert. Okay. Hang on a minute. Okay, Google. Oh, it's not answering. Okay, Google. What's the weather going to be like this year?
These came back from a search.
Well, why don't you just tell me? Will summer 2024 be hot? The Met Office predicts that 2024 will be the warmest year on record.
Oh, good.
This isn't weather, really. This is climate. This is, temperatures will exceed the 1.5 centigrade threshold. The world is already over 1 degree warmer on average than it was before industrial times. And 2024 was the warmest year on record, and it's going to be even warmer this year. There you go.
I can cancel my trip to the Bahamas.
Get your cosy out, James. You're going to need it. Thanks a lot, mate. 0345 6060 973. Just wanted to know what the weather was going to be like, that's all. Not complicated at all. This text says, I know it's not Christmas, but I was just scrolling through YouTube and came upon the Rishi Sunak channel and his Christmas video where he is alone in number 10. I'm lost for words. I would rather walk barefoot over Lego for 6 miles. I would rather walk barefoot over Lego for 6 miles than watch him trying to act again. Thing is, someone actually said, hey, I've got a great idea to boost Tetch's image. And then they came up with that. Yeah, I think his PR team hate him. Because nothing they do actually makes him look better. It always tends to make him look worse. Like the nonsense with the minced pies. He did his own manual labour and pulled them off the shelf himself and then just walked out of the shop without paying. I didn't see him pay, did you? And then he was going to distribute them to essential workers. So either 6 essential workers got a box each, or he opened them and then, without the benefit of having washed his hands, distributed 6 individual pies in each box to 36 people in all. Maths fans. And it just made him look so weird. I think probably just sit behind a desk and just don't say anything from now on. That would be your best policy. I pass that on as a free advice. You're welcome.
This is LBC with Nick Abbott. Call 0345 6060 973. Tweet at LBC. Text 84850.
And remember, darling, I don't work before 10 in the morning and never after 4:30 in the afternoon.
Never after 4:30 in the afternoon. That is my strict rule. 0345 6060 973. Fleet. James.
Hello, Nick.
James.
You've not done any maths for ages and I've been missing it.
6 8s are 42. Any fool know that. You just have to learn your multiplication table and once learned, never forgotten. 7 8s... 40,
fantastic.
40, 48, 7.
Well, I was thinking a bit
46.
rather bigger than that.
Yes?
Specifically, the enormous difference between a million and a billion.
A billion, yeah, huge.
A million and a billion. There's an even bigger difference between 2 million and 2 billion.
Right.
Did you realise that in the middle of September 1960, at the age of 3 weeks and 2 days, the delightful little, sweet little baby Nick Abbott was a 2 million second-old baby.
Oh, so cute.
But going forward to 2 billion seconds, this is going to be tomorrow. That's what I call a big difference. 2 billion seconds old tomorrow you'll be.
I'll be 2 billion seconds old.
You will.
Wow, I don't look a day over 1.9 billion seconds.
Anyway, I just thought you'd like to know that.
Always get a lot of sleep and drink a lot of water, James, and you too can look like me at this age. All right, thanks a lot, mate. But the difference between a million and a billion is, I I used to do this in seconds a lot. I think a million seconds is like 11 days, and a billion seconds is 37 years, something like that. People don't have any idea. It's very difficult to keep in your mind numbers that are that large. It becomes almost like studying philosophy rather than maths. Dom in Belfast says, "Isn't that the book Britannia Unchained that called the British workforce the most lazy in the Western world?" Yes, it is. This is that story about that fella. What's his name? Skidmore. Blimey, the internet has been just pouring praise over this bloke all day long. A former Conservative minister has announced he is resigning as an MP in protest at the party's dash for oil and gas. Chris Skidmore, a leading voice within the Tory party on green issues, is he? Said on Friday he would resign from Parliament as soon as it returns next week over Rishi Sunak's bill to allow new oil and gas licences to be issued. He said, right, that's it, I'm leaving. Skidmore called the bill a tragedy. Accusing the Prime Minister of being committed to a course of action that is, quotes, wrong and will cause future harm. His resignation in Kingswood, wherever that is, will trigger at least the 8th by-election in a year, with Labour looking to chalk up another victory in a seat with an 11,000 Tory majority. But he wasn't going to stand anyway. Skidmore said in his resignation statement, this bill would in effect allow more frequent new oil and gas licences and the increased production of new fossil fuels in the North Sea. He said, I can also no longer condone nor continue to support a government that's committed to a course of action I know is wrong and will cause future harm. To fail to act, rather than merely speak out, is to tolerate a status quo that cannot be sustained. I am therefore resigning my party whip and instead intend to be a free person, not a number, or words to that effect. And Twitter positively lit up with praise that a Tory had supposedly acted out of conscience, as though that's so rare now that it's worthy of celebration rather than just the normal course of events. This is how far we've fallen. We practically throw a party when someone in office appears to be doing the right thing. Next week, the government is introducing this offshore petroleum licensing bill in the House of Commons. And they're doing it because the promise was, until they were rebutted, the promise was, it's going to be all our oil and it's going to be cheaper oil and we can keep it all and, it's going to be great. And none of the above is true. The latest IPCC report makes it clear that no new fossil fuel projects can be opened. Doing so goes against the recommendations of most of the world's leading climate scientists. Mostly. But the world's leading climate scientists, of course, have singularly failed to become donors to the Conservative Party. So no one was remotely interested in anything they had to say. Ed Miliband, the Shadow Energy Secretary, said, well done to Chris Skidmore for standing up to this desperate Conservative government. Zach Goldsmith, the Conservative peer and environmental campaigner, called the policy of extracting more oil a nonsense policy. Caroline Lucas, the Green MP for Brighton, said, memo to Rishi Sunak, this is what principled politics looks like. Really? I mean, I'd be more inclined to start throwing streamers and blowing up balloons if this Skidmore chap did not plan to run as an MP in the next election anyway, because his constituency will be abolished in the upcoming boundary changes. And there's the unhelpful website that records how MPs vote. It's called They Work For You. Now, assuming that it's accurate, let's gauge whose side he's on by how he's voted. Well, he's consistently voted for a more restrictive regulation of trade union activity, and he's almost always voted against a banker's bonus tax, and generally voted against higher taxes on banks. So there's that. And what does he feel about that great way of reducing traffic emissions, public transport? Well, he's almost always voted against greater public control of bus services, generally voted against a publicly owned railway system, and consistently voted against slowing the rise in rail fares, which doesn't sound very green. And what does he think about the little people, you know? The little people. He's generally voted against raising welfare benefits, at least in line with prices. Almost always voted against spending public money to create guaranteed jobs for young people who have spent a long time unemployed. Consistently voted for reducing housing benefit for social tenants deemed to have excess bedrooms. That's the bedroom tax. Almost always voted against paying higher benefits over longer periods for those unable to work due to illness or disability. Just pause and think about that for a while. And almost always voted for a reduction in spending on welfare benefits. This is how Chris Skidmore voted on environmental issues. Generally voted against measures to prevent climate change. Consistently voted for selling England's state-owned forests.
What?
Generally voted against financial incentives for low-carbon emission electricity generation methods. Huh. So it just makes it all a bit odd, this falling in love with him on social media by people who burst into tears when they heard a man was resigning as a point of principle from being a Tory MP because he disagreed with a stance on oil extraction because of climate change, yet literally voted against measures to prevent climate change. I mean, really?
Well, the whole world's gone crazy.
What is happening? And in case you've forgotten, he's one of the Britannia Unchained people. His name is right there on the front of the book. Britannia Unchained. Look it up on Wikipedia. You don't have to read it. Global Lessons for Growth and Prosperity, a political book written by several British Conservative MPs and released in September 2012. Many of those Conservative MPs are close to your heart. Its authors present a treatise arguing that Britain should adopt a different and radical approach to business and economics or risk an inevitable slide into mediocrity. Well, what constitutes an inevitable slide into mediocrity?
This government...
Exactly. The book was written by Crazy Kwarteng, Priti Patel, Dominic Raab.
My name's Dominic Raab, and I'm a Tory.
And Chris Skidmore. And Liz Truss.
Absolutely.
Conservative MPs who were elected in May 2010 and belonged to the party's Thatcherite-leaning Free Enterprise Group. A grouping of British Conservative Party members of Parliament founded by Liz Truss. The Blunder Truss. You know, the one who said...
We have never had it so good.
Yeah. It was written by the Britannia Untrained, the thing that said that British people were among the most bone idle in the world. Words to that effect. The most lazy in the Western world, something like that. And what do we do with them? We put them into government. The group's been associated with the Institute of Economic Affairs. Leading lights, Steve Baker, Robert Buckland, Therese Coffey, Charlie Elphick, George Eustace, Ben Gummer, Matthew Hancock, Sajid Javid, Andrea Leadsom, Chris Skidmore, again, Rory Stewart, Liz Truss, Nadeem Zahawi.
And one?
Yes.
Two,
3.
6 million.
No. The Institute of Economic Affairs, a right-wing free market think tank registered as a UK charity. We pay them to tell us this stuff. Funding undisclosed. But, says Wikipedia, some funding from fossil fuel industry, gambling industry, tobacco industry, various assorted billionaires. So, that's who that was. I'm shedding a tear as we speak. 0345 6060 973. Text 84850. Email nica@lbc.co.uk. What's the other one? Email tweet at LBC. Did I say that? 0345 6060 973. Pretty much said that. 84850. Maybe that's the one I missed out. I knew it was something. Funny how you remember right at the end.
On your radio, on Global Player, and
Play LBC.
leading Britain's conversation. This is LBC. This is LBC from Global, leading Britain's conversation with Nick Abbot.
Would you mind telling me what this is all about?
You literally cannot believe a single word they say. Jeremy Hunt just announced, you just heard it on the news, he said when we arrived, inflation was 11%. No, it was not. It was 4.6 when they arrived. 4.6. Not 11, 4.6. They don't tell the truth about anything. Now, I'm assuming that they just throw this stuff out because they know you're not going to check. And it's very difficult for an interviewer to check them in real time because they don't know what they're going to say, so they haven't got the information in front of them to rebut them. There's that word again.
Disgusting.
But I just find it astonishing. Just think, what would Donald Trump do? Donald Trump would just make something up and blurt it out and know that by the time that the interview is over and people have had time to fact-check it, that he has lied another 20 times since. And your head spins and you can't take it anymore. When we arrived, inflation was 11%, he said.
Liar!
No, 4.6. It took me about 10 seconds to find that out. It's painful. It's like we're being held hostage. And they're, well, it's the definition of gaslighting. They're trying to turn us, to make us go insane, to not believe the truth anymore. I could be appalled, but I've decided, just for the moment, to be amused. Let's have Merthyr Tydfil. Hello, Jeff.
Hey, how are you doing, Nick?
Good, thanks.
It's quite something. I didn't realise. I phoned up tonight, and you really have got a glamorous assistant.
Yes.
I'm amazed. Anyway,
now wait a minute. That's the most sexist thing I've ever heard in my life. Are you telling me that the blokes who occasionally work on this show, whoever they may be, are not glamorous? Do they not sound glamorous to you?
It's certainly very glamorous. Anyway, I was wending my merry way. I thought I'd better keep you. You asked me how my year is going, so I went up to check Falsafran.
Oh yeah.
You know the one. And I went up the old bogey road, as they call it, which divides the thing.
Oh. Could you call it something else?
Well, that is actually the name. So
is it? Why is it called that?
I have no idea. But if you ever go to Merthyr and you say, "Where's the bogey road?" They'll send you. And so I went up there on my way, wending my merry way to the Goose and Cuckoo for a pint, and the road goes right through the middle of it. And I have to admit, mind you, it is Christmas past. I haven't gone back to work yet.
Yeah.
But, there are piles of coal. And I glanced to the offices, because the road goes right through, and on your right is the offices and the railhead.
Yeah.
And the big hole is to your left. And I looked over to the offices, and I glanced through my binoculars, and I could see one light was on, and I could see some woman working in the office there. And I had a good look. And no. I
don't know. It sounds like you're describing an arrestable offence here, Jeff.
And do you know that she looked? I could have sworn it was that woman. Or you know the post office woman.
Yeah.
What's her name? It's on 4 times this week, all about this scandal with the post office.
I haven't watched it because I just, I feel really bad about all of the people that have suffered, but I just don't want to be dipped in that misery on my time off,
The woman is Paula Vanells.
Yeah.
She had a CB, right?
Yeah.
The woman in that office looked exactly like her.
Spitting image.
She was messing with a computer in there, and they haven't got the money to fill the hole in. That's all I can tell you. That's all I can tell you, Nick.
Well, I want you to keep your eyes peeled and your binoculars ready, and take a packed lunch with you next time you're staking somebody out. All right, you might come over all faint and unnecessary. Thanks a lot, Jeff. There she is. Hip hip. Boo! Unbelievable. Dom in, not him, the whole post office thing, but I can't talk about that because, like I said, I haven't watched the TV programme, and I know it's awful, but I just cannot bring myself to be dipped in that misery. But when I'm watching TV on my time off, I want to be transported to somewhere fan-bloomin-tastic, not some greyish, sort of beige and grey hours of misery. No thanks. Appreciate the offer, but no. Deborah says, since various governments have consistently wrecked this country's economy, it's become obvious that the Spice Girls eventually became our only export. As industry declined even more, it seems that the SGs were the last remaining great export that gave Britain the ability to hold its head up within the global market, says Deborah. Deborah. I still don't know what Zigga Zigga art is. It's probably rude, so don't tell me. Dom in Belfast. No, I've got that one. That's the Britannia Unchained. I had detailed files, and I've given you all the information I have. And that tax cut, by the way, that's not a tax cut. He's taken a tenner from you, and he's giving £2 back and making out like you're up on the deal. Don't believe a word of it. Nottingham. Hello, Helen.
Hi, Nick. Are you well?
Yes, good, thanks.
So I rang in tonight because we're getting a national insurance cut that means the average salaried household gets, I think it works out as £30 a month savings. Which is not quite. It's it's squiffy, isn't it?
Yeah.
But yeah, okay. Like on face value, we'll take that. So my dad rang me 2 days ago. He said, "You know, your gas and electricity is going up again." I'm like, okay, what does that mean? So we're looking at that, and I'm looking at how utilities are going up.
Yes.
Again. Now, when I say again, I sound really grumpy about it, and I genuinely don't mean to, but I'm having to work from home. So post-COVID, they were like, you're going on a working from home contract.
Yeah.
Because for whatever reason, what we will do is, because the unions have said, you'll get £26 a month in your pay packet. This is going back to 2020 to cover your utilities. I mean, it's not scratching the surface, to be fair, but it is what it is. So I'm like, okay, I'll deal with that. That's fine. So at the same time as we've got Rishi Sunak saying, well, hey, guess what? You're going to save £30 a month in national insurance. Mm-hmm. There's a confirmation that utility bills are going to go up again. I know I use the word again, but we've gone again and again and again
and again and again. Yes.
And
other countries, other better run countries whose governments run the country for the benefit of the people rather than running the country for the benefit of the people that are running the country. Those countries, like France, for instance, they kept the cost of fuel down for their citizens. But, I suppose it's our fault because we delivered them a stonking majority.
Well, you tell me, Nick. I 48 hours ago set up a little page, a little Facebook thing in my local area around potholes. It was a little thing that I thought, well, let's get people together. In 48 hours, over 1,500 members have joined, and the local press have got involved. And I'm like, oh gosh, I was just trying to, do something to bring us all together.
Yeah, and now you're famous.
Yeah, apparently. and then I'm like, and it comes back down to money. And somebody said something within these millions of groups about, I can go to Benidorm and I can drive down Spanish roads, and I can, I've got a really smooth journey, and I've got this. But
you could play snooker on the roads in Spain.
Absolutely. So what is the excuse in this country that we're driving down what I might refer to the crater of the moon?
Yeah.
And then we're being, we should bow down to the fact that, oh my goodness, we might on an average earning, might save £30 a month on national insurance, but our energy prices going up. And what happens when energy prices go up? The people producing the food that we eat, the people that, do anything for this country. If the energy prices go up, everything else goes up.
Well, I'm sorry, Helen, but if
you can shove your national insurance £30 a month,
Helen,
it's not touching the size, is it?
Helen, if you had taken the precaution of being a donor to the Conservative Party, then none of this would be affecting you. But I'm afraid
one of those VIP lanes and given them PP that was just.
You had the opportunity to be a millionaire, but you passed it up. It's actually worse than you've described. Rishi Sunak has been fact-checked on Twitter again. He's like the Donald Trump of British politics. You only know something is true when he says it isn't. He tweeted, from today, 27 million working people will pay less tax. He said he's taken tough decisions. It's always that, isn't he? Tough man taking tough decisions to get up to a place where we can cut tax responsibly. But as soon as we could, we have, said Rishi Sunak. Conservatives, he said, believe in low taxes. If we can go further this year, responsibly and sustainably, we will. And he got fact-checked and to the following account. Tax has not been cut. The Office for Budget Responsibility states that the freeze to tax thresholds this Parliament will be worth the equivalent of a 10p increase in the main rate of national insurance contributions against Sunak's cut of 2p. It's an 8p increase. So he's taking 8, or either he's actually taking 10 and he's giving you 2 back and saying, there you are, there's 2, you're up on the deal.
Well, Nick, can I leave a final message for Mr. Sunak in complete, professionalism?
Yes.
I work for the NHS.
Oh, no, an activist...
I'm an activist.
Right.
I work for the NHS.
Enemy of the people.
Yeah. So my message to him would be this. When my staff and my patients were dying because you gave them inappropriate infection prevention control equipment through your VIP lanes,
yes.
We can't take you seriously. We can't. So anything that comes out of your mouth, therefore, we can't take seriously. And to say that, oh, look at you, you're getting £30 a month extra whilst our utility bills are going up, and then you're going VIP lanes through equipment that you gave us through VIP lanes that were inadequate. I'm sorry, mate. You can do, if you're listening, you can do one.
Helen, it's worse than I have already described to you. Let me give you the... because I could go through like a lot of numbers and it depends on how much you earn, etc. and so on. But a wealth management company called Quilter says that despite the national insurance cut, a worker on an average salary will be, get ready, £2.68 a week better off than they would have been had the tax thresholds not been frozen. So that's the maximum you can expect, £2.68 per week. But it's worse than that because the Resolution Foundation think tank, which works to improve the lives of non-billionaires, said the bottom half of earners will lose any gains from the lowering of national insurance payments when their income tax bills go up in April. The net effect will result in all employees earning below 26 grand a year being worse off. If you earn 50 grand or more, you'll be better off. How totally Tory does that sound?
That's I remember a few years ago, and I just got to that point above what was the average wage, and thinking I was like rocking it. But you've got to bear in mind, in the NHS, you're not going to earn a lot.
No.
Whatever you do, it's never going to happen.
Well,
But
consultants are on a pretty good amount. Consultants should... they're doing just fine. Consultants.
Yeah, the consultants are, and I sort of... I as a nurse, I was on a picket line.
Yeah.
And I also support the junior doctors striking because
absolutely.
Consultants,
of
I'm
course.
like, oh come on, you've got your big houses and you've got. I'm a bit. You see where I'm coming from in terms of my my thoughts, but to say, Jesus. Sorry, Nick, it astounds me.
But it's worse than that, Helen.
If you get £2 a month...
Yeah. A week, £2 a week.
£2 a week.
Don't spend it all in the same shop. Oh, no, sorry, you already have.
Yeah. I reckon that gets us a takeaway once every 2 months. So that's good. We've got a now.
Well, enjoy it with the government's compliments. But Helen, and I have to take a break now, but I'm afraid that it's worse than I have already described. I think you're going to have to grip onto something firm and prepare yourself. But I'll come back and tell you that, give you the bad news.
Leading Britain's conversation. Nick Abbot. Alexa, send a comment to LBC.
Are you trying to be funny? Because I'm all out of laughs.
Yes, you will be all out of laughs when I tell you what I'm going to tell you in just a moment. But, when the government says... when they start saying... When Jeremy Hunt starts his spiel with inflation was 11% when we took over. No, it wasn't. I don't know how they can live with themselves, really. It's just a game, I would imagine. Well, just throw this out and see how long it takes for them to, find out that they've been duped, by which time we've thrown another 40 or 50 lies out, and their heads will start to spin. 11%. 4.6. Despite the national insurance cuts, a worker on an average salary will be £2.68 a week. Per week, better off. £2.68. But it's worse than that, because the Resolution Foundation think tank says the bottom half of earners will lose any gains from the lowering of national insurance payments when their income tax bills go up in April. The net effect is all employees earning below 26 grand a year will be worse off or unaffected. Those on more than that will gain. If you earn 50 grand, then you are in the sweet spot. So, I mean, that's them showing us what their priorities are. What blows my mind is that people who are earning below £26,000 are more likely than not to vote Conservative, or at least they didn't in the last election. If you check the figures, it's the poorest among us that voted Conservative the most. And I bet they're itching to do it all over again. Can't wait. But it's worse than all that, and I can't believe that this story has not gained more traction. Maybe because it came out just before Christmas. Probably, a great time to bury bad news. But I'll get to that in a minute. You'll hate it. I mean, a lot. Oldbury. Hello, Ranjit.
Hiya, mate. You're right.
Yes, good, thanks.
Yeah, I'm just, I'm killing myself laughing. This bloke, Skidmark, that's retired. I mean, not Skidmark, Skidmore, yeah? The thing with him, he's probably not going to win his seat. He's trying to be a martyr now, isn't he, for the Tories? What do you think?
I think I don't really understand this outpouring of love and affection from the left wing on social media, saying that it's just incredible, like hugging themselves with delight that a Conservative Member of Parliament appears to be acting on his own conscience. Whereas, if you look at his voting record, he appears unless the website They Work For You is wrong, he appears to have voted against all of the climate change issues that have come before him. So how he is a champion of nature, I'm at a loss to figure out. Plus, his seat was going to get... the boundaries of the seat were going to get changed, so he wasn't going to have a seat anyway. He wasn't going to stand anyway.
So he started to throw his toys out the pram, hasn't he, really, if you interpret it that way? Yeah. He could have waited and naturally disappeared, but he wants to make maximum impact for his gaffer, Rishi Sunak, yeah? And, the other thing that he's talking about, the trigger broom, yeah? When there's
what's that?
If you watch Only Fools and Horses,
I've never seen
it. Trigger is a bit slow.
Right.
And he's saying what he is, he's a street cleaner. And he goes, this broom has been handed down to me from my ancestry, yeah? It's had 7 different heads and 6 different handles. The broom handle, yeah.
Right. But it's still in its original form. Right.
That's it. And that's what reform is, right? The only thing that's missing now, right, for it to come back is Nigel Farage. And,
well, he is a part of it. He's, I think he's the major shareholder, isn't it? It's not a party, it's a company.
If it's a company, then they're going to come and loot the company, our country again as well. I think the Tory party might be a company as well, the way they've gone about it, because they haven't governed us, have they, really, if you think about it?
They don't act like a political party. They do act more like, I don't know about company, that they act like they're in...
the opposite of Robin Hood.
Well, yeah.
Rob the poor and give it to the rich.
But it's more like they're staging a ram raid on the country.
They're running a ram raid.
Yeah, it's like when the electricity goes out and people start looting madly. This often happens in America, but it happens here too, every now and again. resembles more what they're like than a political party. They're more like a ram raid.
You know, when like James O'Brien's off and he gets guest presenters in, right? I'd love to speak to Jeremy Hunt, yeah, because I would say to him, I'd use that Clint Eastwood thing that I always use, yeah. Don't pee on my back and tell me it's raining, mate.
That's Clint Eastwood?
That's Clint Eastwood in Outlaw Josie Wells.
Really?
That's what he said to somebody. Yeah. But that's what they're doing. You know what? These people are so... some people, right? I'm not angry because I'm calm. This is my New Year's
this is you
resolution.
calm?
Yeah. The thing is, Nick, it's up to people like yourself, right, to explain to people what these guys are doing because...
Well, it's not very... I mean, if I can figure it out, anybody can, Ranjit. I mean, seriously, all you just have to do is look it up. I mean, that Jeremy Hunt thing about inflation was 11% when we took over. No, it took me 10 seconds to find that out. Just type it into Google and check everything they say. And if the first thing they say isn't true, then go ahead and assume that everything else they said isn't true.
Well, that's what I said to you last night, didn't I? I said Rishi Sunak says he's got a lot more work. It's going to take him more than 6 months to do it. That means the election's more likely going to be in May, right? And that's why I to be honest with you, I think all the people now are deserting Rishi Sunak, right? And they're making it even worse.
Well, his own party seem to hate him more than we do.
Yeah, absolutely. You know, he comes out, right, and why is he nudging his head when he talks? I mean, he seems to be. Well, I mean, we've gone over this. He's robotic, isn't he? The way he talks, right?
Terrible.
As if someone's pulling his. Yeah. And at the moment, he's got nobody on his side. He might have to recycle the lease bot again or something like that, and say, bring it back into the thing, or crazy Quartang.
Yeah, why not? Let's just throw the dice.
Absolutely.
I mean, what could possibly go wrong?
Well, the other thing, that Nadine Zawari, yeah, because he's in that program, about the post office. They showed him in there because I seen it.
He played himself. Can you believe that?
He played him. So he's got definitely a new career, hasn't he? He's going to be an actor.
No. Without the benefit of having seen his performance, I can confidently say no. And furthermore...
No.
Ranjit, I'm going to have to go, but thanks for that. Chan in Sutton Coldfield says, I think Fishy looks like that annoying paperclip assistant that used to float around on Microsoft Office all those years ago. That's a good point. The stick insect of mendacity is actually that annoying paperclip assistant. James tweets, given the enthusiasm for the Prime Minister's visit to Stockport... I suggest he next visits housing estates in Liverpool and then Glasgow. Yeah, I suggest that too. Go on, Fishy. I double dare you. And we were talking about bad names for a dog because I think Joe Biden's dog is called Commander, isn't it? Which is a stupid name for a dog. And we were trying to come up with a worse one than Commander, and we came up with Help. Or Fire, which you don't really want to be yelling in a public place. And this text says, for a dog's name, the best name is Bomb.
Leading Britain's conversation, Nick Abbot. Alexa, send a comment to LBC.
This is absolute tosh.
Thanks, Nige, you're the best. We were talking about kids taking each other's jackets, which is not a funny thing at all. I mean, it seems to be the latest trend. I guess it will diminish as the weather gets warmer, but that's not going to happen anytime soon. This text says, Canada Goose jackets are flying out of the shops. Another listener with material. Greg in Leeds says, I've got a solution for the coat jacking in London. A nice warm Stone Island jacket, and the muggers will think you're a Millwall supporter and leave you well alone. You can thank me later. I had no idea about that Stone Island thing. I mean, it's apparently very big with a certain element, which must really upset the people who make Stone Island. Because they make a product that I'm sure is... I've never owned anything by Stone Island because they've got that stupid label on the arm, the button thing. It always looked a bit daft to me. What do they want to do that for? Logos, not a fan. But they make a good product, and then they put it out there, and they put a price on it that's going to appeal to a certain refined type of person, and then it's taken up by the kind of person that they probably wouldn't want in their shops, and then there's nothing they can do about it because it becomes a thing with them. It's the same thing happened with Burberry. Burberry started to get worn by the kind of people that Burberry would not want to be associated with. And they just, people would walk out the house in that Burberry check from their hat to their feet, which is, it must have freaked them out at Burberry, because the actual customers that they wanted, people with a lot of money, they were turned off the very idea because they saw people, what's a polite way of saying chav? People like that were wearing them head to foot. And there's really not much they can do about it. I mean, they could tell their security not to let a certain type of person into the store, but it goes beyond that, though, doesn't it? I mean, you can buy it online, and you can buy it here, there, and everywhere, baby. I bet they're absolutely furious. I don't know who owns the Stone Island. I'll look that up. Alan from Barnsley says, those jackets are not that expensive. I got my Canada Goose jacket for 35 quid off the market. 0345 6060 973. Tooting. Hello, Jan.
Hi, Nick. Hi, good evening.
Jan.
Yeah, I was trying to find that Donald Trump video that you mentioned. I couldn't find it, but I've just...
Donald Trump
ringing...
God. That's all you need to put in your... I bet I can find it in about 10 seconds.
I'll try and find it later, but I thought I came across some interesting information about Trump.
Videos. There it is. First thing I looked at.
Oh no! All right, I will. I'll look at it when I finish. But I thought what was interesting was this article about the risks that Trump. Well, he could pose considerable risks for European and UK security, especially in relation to the fact that he doesn't support Zelensky, Ukraine, and he might and I think he has in plan to withdraw America from NATO.
But just basically anything that would please Vladimir Putin seems to be Donald Trump's number one priority. Curious that.
Yeah, they're bedfellows, aren't they? Maybe they'll be fluffing up. Oh no, that would be sorry. No, anyway, but there again, at the same time, the Foreign Office is saying that, or some officials emphasise that the special relationship between US and America, that whether the president is from either the Republican or the
There is
Democrat.
no such thing as a special relationship between us and America. It does not exist.
Then I came across this bit of information that I haven't come across before. I'm not an expert in this field, but it says that at the same time, there's some confidence that the government, even if Donald Trump gets in and poses a risk, there's still that what they call Five Eyes alliance, which means that security services they share secret information.
Well, it depends on
it
depends on whether the person in charge wants them to do that, or whether the person in charge just blurts out secrets to whoever comes by his tacky restaurants.
It's weird, isn't it? And there's also, I found that Five Eyes, this is news to me, and Nine Eyes. Five Eyes is a UK, Australia, Canada, New Zealand, UK, and US who would share secret information, security services.
Right.
But then there's also there's the Nine Eyes, which involves Denmark, extract countries, Denmark, France, Netherlands, and Norway.
Oh, we better not tell France anything. What with their whole thing.
So it's gosh. And earlier when you're talking about, there's all this talk about this Third World War, and funnily enough, No, you mentioned something about a Third World War earlier, and then I was thinking about those two sci-fi writers that the Ministry of Defence, or one of the laboratories for defence, they commissioned them to write stories about
Skywriters? What, you mean people who write words in the sky?
Science fiction writers.
Oh, sci-fi, right. Yeah, they want futurologists to predict what's going to happen. Yeah.
So, and they're famous for writing, the two of them together wrote a well-known science fiction book called World War III.
Right, well, that's not a happy coincidence, is it? World War III.
Yeah, that's what they're well known.
Forthcoming attractions.
Scenarios.
Yeah.
And one of them is actually is a scholar. They're not just creative writers. They're rooted in the sense of reality of international relations. One of them is a scholar in international.
Well, that sounds great. I would expect that if it's not the next World War, then maybe the one after that won't be fought between humans. It will be fought between humans and robots.
Affirmative.
Yeah, Nick, but I'll finish on a light note because can I say something else?
HAPPY-ness. Go on.
Two happy things. Can I have got time to say two happy things?
Two happy things. Thing one?
Yeah. One is that I've just found out that there's going to be a version of Elvis Presley to perform in London this year, and it's what is it? It says it's Return of the King. I'm really excited about that. It's using AI.
Oh, the thing that the Abbot do.
Yeah,
it's a remarkable thing. Yeah, it really is.
I'm really looking forward. It's going to be an immersive Elvis evolution concert. We'll bring him to life through AI and holographic projection.
Great.
And that's something to look forward to.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
And as well as let me ask you, do you ever take part in that? I take part in it.
No. Whatever it is you're about to say, the answer is no.
No, this is the Royal Society for the Protection of Birds.
Oh, the counting the birds thing. Yeah,
the bird watch.
Right.
At the end of every January. So I didn't do it last year, but I'm going to do it. I did it one year. Do you ever take part in it?
No.
Oh, well, maybe you should. Look, I took part in it one year. You don't have to do it in your own garden if you haven't got a garden.
Oh, you can go sit in somebody else's garden?
No, you can do it in a park or a common. I did it 1 year. Mm-hmm. 1 year I did it on my local Tooting Common.
Yeah, but do you have to know what birds are? Because all birds look the same. This might sound racist to you, Jan, but all birds look alike to me.
No, this didn't. It was an amazing experience because it was so unexpected. I did it on my local common, yes? And although there are lots of those green, noisy birds around, I was so surprised to find a sea of seagulls like filling a whole, maybe a quarter of a mile of square field on the common, all full of seagulls. And then all of a sudden, I thought, well, I can't count those, can I?
Of course you can. They're birds. That's the whole point. You count everything. All birds that you see must go down on your little piece of paper there, Jan.
They were smaller. They were the smaller type of seagulls, and they filled the whole of this massive area of like a field area on the common. And I was so taken aback by it. I just stood there, looked at it, amazed. And then all of a sudden, it was as if there was a signal, and they all took off.
Yeah, amazing. Like birds.
And so that was,
I certainly will look out for that when the time is right. Thanks a lot, Jan.
Nick Abbot on LBC. Call 0345 6060 973.
Listen to him. He knows everything.
Greg in Bexhill says, wherever did green bananas become legal? Even monkeys won't eat them. That's so bizarre. I can't control what comes in. I'm just giving you the facts, ma'am. Wherever did green bananas become legal, even monkeys won't eat them, says Greg. Chris in Stubbington says, did you watch the programme Mr. Bates versus the Post Office? The way they were treated and jailed was a total disgrace. Yes. No. No. Total disgrace.
That is a disgrace.
Correctamundo, Liz Truss. Can't believe I'm about to say this, but Liz Truss is right. And Adrian from Enniskillen says the US comic Steve Wright's joke was that he called his dog Stay, as in, come here, Stay. Plymouth, Julie.
Hello, Nick.
Julie.
How are you, okay?
Yes, great, mate.
Oh, I I enjoyed listening to Jan, and I agree with her. You should do the RSPB garden count.
Okay.
And what you do is, when you say you've got lots of sparrows or lots of blackbirds or starlings, then you count them once, and it's how many you see at once. So you don't put, every time you see it might be the same one. So it's like over the hour or 2 hours, I'm not sure how long, I usually do it. Then if you see 6 starlings in total, you don't keep adding every time you see maybe one more. You've seen 6 starlings, and that's the amount.
But what if you see 6 at the beginning of the hour and 3 at the end of the hour?
No, it's still 6.
Right.
But if you see 6 and then you see 7, change your 6 to 7. So it's the biggest number that you see.
But what if you don't know what birds are? I mean, I can tell a robin, and I know what a blackbird is, but other than that, seagulls, pigeons, yes. Other than that,
that's
I'm
probably
lost.
all you'll see, because I must admit, it's not... I mean, I don't know what your garden's like, but, there's a lot of birds that migrate.
They won't be migrating to my garden, Julie. It's a wasteland.
Okay, well, they love that. That's the thing. They love wasteland because everybody's building and making patios and making nice lawns, and they love a bit of rough, love a bit of like that natural.
Do they?
So yes, they love it because it's got like loads of foods that they can eat. Yeah.
Yeah, but it's my garden is just concrete. There's no green in it. That's not good. No.
No, concrete. I thought you meant like grass and overgrown.
No, not like that.
Oh, a concrete.
Yeah.
Well, you never know. You might get a couple. And to be fair, there's not going to be any exotic ones at this time of year. No. You'll recognise them.
Although, I don't know, around about this time of year where I used to live, there was suddenly the tree that was full of ivy outside where I live was absolutely groaning with these but I've got no idea what they were. Don't ask me. I've never seen them before, and I've never seen them since, but it was as though there was like about 50 of them in this one bush. They're all just gorging themselves on these berries that this ivy had produced, and they were there for about an hour just sitting there stuffing their faces, and then they were gone.
What were they like then? Were they colourful, small, big?
They were like not quite pigeon-sized, between a blackbird and a pigeon, and quite round. And they had a bit of colour on them, although it's a few years ago now, so I can't remember exactly what they look like. But I haven't seen it before or since.
What like collared doves? Do they look very like a pigeon?
No, they were dark-coloured. We could sit here all night, Julie, and you can start naming birds. It's not going to help.
You could probably Google RSPB, and it'll bring you up which garden birds.
Definitely.
And you can just have a little picture on your phone of them all.
Not going to do that. No.
Oh, Nick, it'll be so delightful. Nick, can I take advantage of our acquaintance?
Yes.
I had a birthday this week.
Birthday?
Thank you. Thank you. That means a lot, because when you have an early January birthday,
that's
not a lot happens.
No.
You're a summer birthday, aren't you? Barbecues,
that's
and
right.
Your parties,
Well, you have to draw it away from Christmas, particularly as a child, because you only get one load of presents.
I remember people saying, you'll get your birthday present at Easter. Can you imagine a child saying that to a child?
Yeah,
what sort of world were we living in? I mean, things have improved. I think people do make more of an effort now.
I don't know.
I always said, you'll have your birthday present at Easter anymore. I don't get birthday presents anymore. You've got to buy your own at our age.
That's right.
It's nice, though.
Yeah, awful.
It's nice. You can treat yourself to something nice.
I don't know. But you know what it is. You wrap it up, and but you know what's inside. It's rubbish.
And then you take it back because you think, that was a waste of money.
That's right. What stupid idiot bought me this?
Oh, very good.
All right, thanks a lot, Julie. Happy birthday. Andrew in Denmark Hill says, like Bicester in Oxford, Nick, one of the pronunciation trivia traps looking for those who have English as a second or third language. Oh, yeah, we were talking about this. But not in relation to foreigners not understanding how to pronounce British names. It's a class thing. There are some names that the upper class use, but they are pronounced unlike they are written. It's to catch out those that are non-you. You know, like, I'm not sure that Bicester is one of them, but certainly Althorp is. Althorp is Althorpe. But it isn't. It's Althorp. How silly is that? And don't even get me started on Bewley. I've got some very bad news for you, and I mentioned this a while ago, and it was in relation to the supposed tax giveaway that they are promising that that's exactly what's happening. Liar! But it isn't. It's like somebody in the street has nicked £10 off you, and they've given you £2 back, and they're trying to convince you that you're up on the deal. That's what's happening. But it's worse than that. Much worse. And this story came out just before Christmas, and I cannot believe people weren't freaking out about it more, except that they deliberately put it out just before Christmas. Just days before, knowing that our minds were on other things, or we weren't, going about our normal routine. We were out there freaking out that all the potatoes would be gone by the time we got to the supermarket, that kind of thing. So you're going to have to prepare yourself. I can't just throw it at you. You're going to have to gird yourself. West Devon, hello, Rose.
Oh, hello, Nick. Just talking to myself, you said you're going to have to gird yourself, and I was muttering, "Oh, gird up my loins."
Oh, please.
Sorry. Oh, well, I just self-indulgence. I'd only been thinking about the birds in my garden before I lost it. Yeah. I'd only been thinking about that earlier today. And, well, I was there for 18 years, and, the last, few years, quite a few years, I used to do the bird count as well. But I know it's January, but, the first thing, I was trying to think what those ones that piled onto the ivy berries would be. And by your description, I think it could be fieldfares, because they are bigger than blackbirds, but they're not pigeon size,
Yeah, quite possibly. Do they come and alight here on the way to somewhere else?
Well, they come for the winter. They come from Scandinavia and Russia. Right. And they're rather stunning, actually. When they fly off, their wings go up, and you've got this flash of silver underneath the wing. So I used to get them, and they do come for the berries. They will. I had a crabapple tree in my garden with wonderful bright red apples, and once these apples got soggy enough, the fieldfares and the redwings would land on them, and the blackbirds too. They like them, they're residents, obviously. Redwing is another. Oh, it's a lovely thing. That's slightly smaller than a blackbird, I think, or about the same size, and that has red on the wings.
Yeah. See, I'm not going to be able to. I'm not going to be able to list all of these birds, because I just don't know what I'm looking at. I know pigeons.
No, that does make it difficult.
Seagulls. Yeah. Robins, yes. I can tell from a distance. Blackbirds, I know. Other than that, I'm lost.
I used to have bullfinches, Nick.
I am so sorry to hear that.
I used to have bullfinches in the garden.
Oh.
And the spring migrants, like blackcaps and willow warblers, they wouldn't have arrived in January, but the long-tailed tits were a marvellous sight. You know the long-tailed tit, it's a tiny little thing, and its colours are basically sort of palely pink and black, and just, I can't describe really, with this lovely long tail.
That does
They're
not
adorable.
Ring a bell at all. No. So when do they normally have this counting thing?
And all the finches. Well, I don't think it's worth it if you're concrete, really. Is it, Nick?
But they want all sorts of different environments, surely.
See. Yes, I suppose that's the point, isn't it?
I mean, if I say I saw 0, then that would be, that would be helpful in some way, I imagine.
Yes, sorry, you're absolutely right. Yes, of course, I've missed the last... I missed this year and I missed last year, because I've only got concrete now.
Well, I'm going to keep my eyes peeled, and as soon as it comes around, I'll... it's just an hour, right? You don't have to sit there all day.
No, just pick your hour. You're best first early in the morning or just before dusk.
Just as the sun...
It's the end of January. It's the end of this month.
Right. Okay, well, not first thing in the morning, most definitely. I'll have to have my porridge, my cup of tea, and my happy morning sit down, and then I'll be ready to go.
Yes, all right. And I used to we had a flock of lapwings as well, which came sort of migrant Some of them come from abroad, and some of them, because we don't have them down here in the summer, but they come down from, just more northern parts of Britain. And they suddenly rose from the field next to me one day. I thought, what is that? Masses. I mean, not hundreds and hundreds like the start you get with starlings, but they just rose into the air. They're the ones that they call peewits as well, and they go, peewits! Are you still there, or am I off? Well, I just thought I'm talking to myself.
Well, it was like a flock of them just entered the studio. That was really remarkable there, Rose. I had no idea what was happening there. Here, I'm going to have to go, but thanks for that. 0345 6060 973. See if I can read some of these before the news, because they're piling up. Page after page after page. I don't know how they get my number. Ali in Leeds says, when you use your ka-ching sound for cash, it reminds me of open all hours. The till is the government, and we're all Ronnie Barker. I didn't see open all hours either, so I don't really know what that means. Chrissy says, sounds like an ideal solution for the sewage to be irradiated. What does? Are these texts from last night still? Am I still getting through the ones from last night? Oh, my God. I am very bad at my job. Says, sounds like an ideal solution for the sewage to be irradiated as it floats around my beloved West Coast. Pipe it all here and we'll gladly sanitise it for you. In other news, enjoy your unique glow-in-the-dark shellfish. You can eat them and use the shells to decorate your home. That does sound like something from last night. I'll have to start reading tonight, because otherwise you'll be fresh out of luck. 0345 6060 973. Friday, Saturday, Sunday night at 10. Nick Abbot, LBC.
On your radio, on Global Player, and
Play LBC.
leading Britain's conversation. This is LBC. This is LBC from Global, leading Britain's conversation with Nick Abbott.
Walkie talkie.
How may I help you?
How may I help you? Jan in York.
Hello, Nick. How
Jan,
are you?
I am great, mate.
That's good. During the A to Z, you said that I should listen to Delilah by the sensational Alex Harvey Band.
Yeah, I did say that, yeah.
Yeah, I've watched it.
And?
Well, it was good,
But
I still think Tom Jones has the edge.
Right.
All right?
That's fine. If that is what your preference is, Jan, then it's not, at the moment, illegal to say that.
No. They are both good, though, you know. By the way, that birdwatch thing, it's you choose an hour between the 26th and the 28th of January.
Oh, of your choice, right.
Yeah. And one more thing.
Yes.
Did you say you were going to do a jigsaw?
I had thought about it, yeah.
Have you started it yet?
No, I haven't bought it yet.
Oh, are you going to?
Oh, I want a round one, because I've got a round table.
Ah, yeah.
Can you get round ones?
You can. Well, I've got one.
Have you? What's it of? Let me guess. It's of the moon or the earth.
No.
One of the two.
No, it's flowers.
Flowers? Right.
Yeah.
I bet that's tricky.
But I've got one on the go at the moment. It's not round, but it will be quite useful for you, I think, because it's a birds.
Labelled, are they?
No.
Oh, well, not useful at all,
not.
then. Yeah.
No, maybe not.
Right. I think you'll have to think it out again.
I think you should get one. You know, they are. I think they're good.
It's something to do while you have a beverage.
Booze. Yes. Can drive you mad at times, though, if you can't find a piece, you know. But,
yeah. Well, you just find a piece, any piece, and then just cut it so it fits. Problem solved.
Oh, is that what you do?
Yeah. That's my plan, yeah.
I didn't realise.
Yeah. All right. Thanks a
all
lot,
right.
Jan. Cheers, my dear. 0345 6060 973. Darrell in Hove says, can everyone please stop bashing the government when they are doing such sterling work? This week, they have provided over 1,000 homes with free swimming pools in their back gardens. Admittedly, each pool takes up the entire garden and they're laced with raw sewage, but hey, let's not get bogged down in the details, says Darrell. Chris in Stubbington says, I wonder whether or not to get Donald Trump some pictures and crayons. I did consider a dot-to-dot book, but I think that might be too advanced for him. Come on, America, please not Trump. It's looking that way. There's too many dingalings. Mark in Gloucester says, last time we had flooding in Gloucester, we had a visit from the excellent Gordon Brown. Has Sunak not visited because there is not a snorkel a snorkel long enough? Gordon Brown? Yeah, not a snorkel long enough. You people are so rude. John in Sligo says, today I saw a woman representing the Farmers Union saying that Brexit was one of the reasons that farmers are struggling. She said, this government do not understand how farming works and how they are losing money. As you and I know, we don't necessarily need farmers as our food comes from supermarkets. And farmers should follow their example of how to make enormous profits. Well, that just makes sense. Right, it's much worse than I had previously explained about that national insurance supposed cut. They're taking £10 off you and giving you £2 back and gaslighting you that you're up on the deal. This news came out just before Christmas, on the eve of Christmas Eve, which is probably why it didn't get much traction. And once Christmas had been and gone, you've forgotten all about it, but prepared to be appalled. Because you know how much the government is digging its heels in to stop junior doctors from being paid £20 an hour, not £15 an hour? Or if you put it like that, it seems ridiculous, indefensible. Whereas what they do is they say, give it as a percentage. So the percentage is about 35%. It's a 35% increase, and that sounds like a huge amount. It sounds like they'd be out there shopping for yachts. But it's just £15 an hour to £20 an hour. Tell me somebody who is ready to save your life after having studied for 5 or 6 years and racked up 100 grand's worth of debt in doing so. Tell me they're not worth £20 an hour. But the government seems insistent that that is not the case, and they are, activist enemies of the people for even asking for it. Well, members of Parliament are set for a 7.1% salary increase.
What?
From £86,584 a year to £92,731 a year. Which is way ahead of inflation, which is running at about 4.6%. And they're getting 7.1%. And they're going to be earning £92,731. They're in line for an inflation-busting pay rise of more than £6,000 a year after a series of public sector wage hikes. £92,731. All worth it, yes?
Absolutely.
Absolutely. The expected rise comes because MPs' pay hikes are linked to changes in average public sector earnings in the October before a pay rise takes effect the following April. So it's just a couple of months away. And I don't hear anybody being appalled about this. In fact, the information came out and then was just wiped from our memory because Santa Claus came. The figure this year, the public sector earnings, 7.1%. But, of course, that's way more than, the piddlingly small amounts that were negotiated by nurses and so on, 5%, many frontline health workers. But, you don't do as important a job as MPs, what with their... how they improve our lives by... got absolutely nothing. Nurses and doctors don't do anything near as important as your average government minister. I mean, what nurse can host their own TV show on a right-wing news channel and write their own column in a right-wing national newspaper while penning a book about their struggle and occasionally remembering that they have to do a couple of hours a month pretending to care about their whining constituents? No wonder MPs get 4 times as much as a waste-of-space nurse. MPs don't set their own pay, of course. And the level is recommended by the Independent Parliamentary Standards Authority. But it's just a coincidence that this snoozing watchdog always gives MPs more than they could reasonably have asked for themselves when they used to set their own pay. That's a neat little trick they pulled, because they used to set their own pay, and people were outraged and threw their ire at them every time they did it. And so they said, well, let's give it to an independent body, and they can set it for us. Nothing to do with us now. And that independent body gave them more than they could reasonably have expected to get had they been setting their own pay. I mean, what a racket. So they've got this supposed independent group to announce their eye-watering pay rises and pretend that they had no say in it. And their salaries went up by £2,400 last April, taking their basic salary to more than 86 grand a year. The daily attendance allowance for peers is also expected to rise from £342 a day to £366 a day, tax-free, for eternity, as in ever. Best club you could possibly be a member of. Isn't that right, Bodge?
Yeah. Wait,
I mean, you've sent so many there for inexplicable reasons. And the government announced in July that pay rises for teachers and doctors and dentists and civil servants and the police and the armed forces and the justice staff will be between 5 and 7%. And the millionaire ex-Chancellor Sajid Javid said earlier this year that MPs' salaries are partly to blame for why so many people are quitting Westminster. Sajid Javid, Super Saj, the former investment banker, said of the £86,000 a year basic salary for MPs, you get what you pay for. Well, I mean, it must be peanuts then, because look what we've got. And you know, the Mirror, at the time, and this was the 18th of December, the Mirror asked its readers, do MPs deserve a pay rise? Those who said yes amounted to 3%. Those who said no amounted to 97%. So, it sounds about 50-50 to me. 50-50. Let's call it that, shall we? Worth every penny.
Leading Britain's conversation. Nick Abbot. Alexa, send a comment to LBC.
I really like you. Do you like me?
Yeah, sure, why not? Ahmed in Leicester says the Tory MP for Bury North said children struggling financially in his town was due to them having bad parents. Yeah, or words to that effect. It's probably the kids' fault, says Ahmed, as they should have picked parents with jobs that pay £80,000 a year, have heavily subsidised meals and make expenses claims which would double the family income. Well, that is quite right. Those children had the opportunity to be born to rich parents, and they declined. Jennifer says, yes, the pronunciation of Uranus was changed in 1986 when Voyager 2 went past it, collecting data, and featured it in the then New News. I was an astronomy student at the time, and we briefly were amused and then went on using the old pronunciation.
Disgusting.
Awful. Hitchin. Hello, Mike.
Hello.
Mike.
I'm on air, yeah?
For a brief time only. Yes, Mike.
Okay, what I'd like to say, please, is they do not earn £91,000 a year. They have a package. That package basically consists of their salary, their pension entitlement after 13 years of consecutive service as an MP. They don't do timesheets. They only appear when there is a whip for a vote, and that's their only time they're compelled to appear.
Mm-hmm.
They get subsidised support in terms of second house costs.
Yeah, children.
They get expenses. They get.
I think it's $5,000 per child, and up to 3 children. 3, not 2, like everybody else, and nobody else gets $5,000.
Yeah. Also, the thing is, they get support costs, which means they can employ their wives.
Yes.
They can have second jobs.
Mm-hmm.
It's not £91,000
second and third and fourth and fifth jobs. Yeah, I mean, if you're not pulling in $200,000 at least as an MP, then you're not trying.
They're pulling in more than that, because when you actually evaluate what this is worth, it's phenomenal.
Yeah.
For 40.
Well, the big money is
47 or 49 days service, $155,000 a year index linked, plus security for life, plus a government car for life.
And then the big money, not for life. No, an MP maybe, PM rather, might get a government car for life, but an ordinary MP doesn't. But the big money comes, of course, after they've left office, after they have monetised their position and spread our cash heavily around donors and those who would be able to offer them a position when they leave at Westminster. That's when the big money comes in. Huge. You know, if you can collect 10 jobs that you don't actually have to show up for, that pay you a 6-figure salary each, then you're earning £1 million a year just putting your feet up and smoking a cigar. You just have to do the right thing by the right people when you're in power. That's all. It's a game. All right, thanks, Mike. 0345 6060 973. Sharon says, I think all MPs must have a lie detector attached to them by law so that everything they say has to be the truth. Otherwise, what's the point of listening to them? Any comments, Bodge? You can't comment on that. No, definitely not on that, no. Theo in Bradford says, how about Uranus? Phonetically, when the Romans what the Romans would have said. It is, after all, a Latin word. Well, what isn't? Noble, momentous, befitting of the solar system's third biggest planet, and with none of the connotations of the snigger-triggering alternatives. Uranus. That sounds okay, I suppose. I guess so. North Carolina. Tim.
Oh, hi, Nick. How you doing?
Good, thanks.
That was quick.
Yeah.
Straight through.
Excellent service, don't you think?
Yeah, really. Yeah, top marks. Anyway, talking about the strange pronunciations of English words.
Yeah.
During the Second World War, the intelligence service issued guidance to the Home Guard to weed out what should I say, German, infiltrators.
Right.
They use 2 examples, right? One of them is actually relevant to me because my surname is Key, K-E-Y. So it showed their obvious bias towards Oxbridge, but they used the names of 2 of the colleges, which when you read them and you just pronounce them, they don't. It's like you wouldn't pronounce them the way they're spelled. So the 2 examples are. CAIUS, which is Keys.
Yes.
Yeah, Keys College, Cambridge. And the other one they used was which you and I would say St John, but Oxbridge types pronounce St John. They don't say St John.
Yeah.
Yeah, St John and Keys College, and they were given to the Home Guard to try and capture or weed out.
The problem with that is, as you've described, it's only going to be known by those who've been to Oxford and Cambridge. So you'll be in danger of shooting oiks.
Well, that's true, but I don't know how many of the Home Guard had been to Oxbridge or not, but that's what they did anyway during the Second World War, these weird pronunciations of English.
So what's the weather like in Carolina, Tim?
Oh, it's actually quite chilly tonight, and we had a lot of rain as well. It was freezing cold and rainy today. It was horrible. Yeah,
can't tell you how glad I am to hear that.
No, but let me tell you this: the weather here is gorgeous most of the time. Even in the middle of winter, you have these lovely, warm days with blue skies. It's lovely. Right. So, but I'm heading back to Limehouse in the next 6 months. So,
don't do it, Tim.
Enjoy. No, all right then. I'll take your advice. Thanks, Nick.
All right, cheers, mate. 0345 6060 973. Terry in Barrowford emails. How are our fellow citizens in Northern Ireland coping with still being trapped in the EU? Mickey Gove claimed that they have the best of both worlds.
A major capital letters, big news story.
Yeah, Fishy Sunak said the same. So you guys have what nobody else has. You can trade with the European Union and the UK, he said. He actually said that out loud to the people of Northern Ireland. You guys, he said. That part's in my book. Which is available on an internet near you, by the way. The A to Z of the year is now available in book form, ebook and paperback. I'm not sure the paperback is out right now. If it's not out at the moment, then it will be this weekend, along with my review of the year, and that was in among it. One of the facts, Jack. Jessica says, if we're fact-checking rubbish about meat taxes, are we? We're not looking at how they're changing the rules elsewhere. They've made cuts from local council budgets, making life for many quite unbearable. But we're so busy staring at performative stupidity, we've forgotten to notice the bread and butter. That's right. Yeah, that's right. Yeah. In other words, what would Donald Trump do? A great performance of stupidity, taking your mind off the bread and the butter. Correct. The Wirral. Hello, Nora.
Hiya.
Nora.
You're right. Speaking of bread and butter, I love a jam sandwich. It's a regular.
A jam
you get
sandwich?
A jam either side. Yeah, I get a jam either side. You one then as you and love a jam. So it's a jam sandwich. Oh, sorry.
I have no idea what it is you're talking about right now. Something about jam sandwiches.
There's two jams, Jan. There's two jams.
Oh, Jan. Right.
And it seems to be sound like a jam sandwich.
But if it's a Jan either side and I'm in the middle, then it's not a Jan sandwich, it's a Nick sandwich.
It's a you sandwich.
Technically,
actually, yes.
yeah.
Sorry. Technically, it doesn't have the same...
Nora, what kind of a phone are you talking to me on? Are we on speakerphone?
Oh, I'm sorry. I did say to the lovely assistant, can you hear me all right? I'm back in Guernsey. And it's a bit... It just doesn't seem to
Nothing works in this country anymore. Do you hear the last guy that I talked to? He was in North Carolina and he was coming through clear as a bell. And I can barely hear a word you're saying.
Guernsey's not in that country.
Right.
Anyway, so I just wanted very quickly then, because it's that poor sound. Did you get to see? You were talking about last night. I listened to the show on the way over on the boat.
Yeah.
And I've got the thing about the families and posh people and how they keep the working classes out.
Yes.
Have you seen Saltburn? Yes.
Saltburn? No.
Burn, yes. It's a film that's out at the moment. Very good pastiche of the sort of the monarchy and the upper classes and how they live, the ruling class.
Now, is this? It's not one of these things that's been written by that bloke who wrote Downton Abbey, is it?
Nothing like that.
Right.
I did think when I started to watch it, I did think I'd stumbled onto, a latter day version of Brideshead Revisited, but it very isn't that.
Right.
So that's that. So, also, I don't know why I can't text. Your previous lovely assistant, who I think was called Dan, explained to me how to do it, and I just can't text, and I don't know why.
84850.
Yeah, no, it's not the number that's at fault. There's something that... Did I prefer to text? Because then I can avoid...
Well, what kind of a phone... Well, Nora, what kind of a phone are you talking to me on? Because it sounds awful.
It's an iPhone 13.
Oh, Apple. Yeah, I don't do Apple. I have no idea how to work an Apple product. I just refuse to have them in my life. I won't do it, Nora. You can't make me.
I don't think it's the phone. There's something about my contract that won't let me text.
That's it.
And
That's
I don't know what
mad.
it is because I've got everything else. I know.
It must be, and it must be user error, Nora. Must be.
Yes. Thank you.
I mean, it's what people don't use the phone to phone anymore. texting is the number one thing they use a phone for, or at least the kids do, constantly waving their thumbs at their phones.
Well, I use it to listen to catch up on RBC. So.
Right.
But it's kind of say everything I can say could really be summed up in the text, and like I say, I can avoid those abandonment issues and you hang up on me. I'm still talking for 5 minutes. It's not just you, James O'Brien as well. He's the same.
Yeah. So maybe that informs why I get about 100 times more messages by text and email than I get calls. Right. That makes sense. Yeah. Because I can usually not get through all of the messages that I receive, but I can get through the calls. So yeah, I think that's it. People just don't use the phone to ring anybody anymore. And when you do call somebody up, they receive the call as though, oh my God, what is there something wrong? Like, who's died? No, I just called for a chat. That's all.
Yeah. Anyway.
All right.
I'm going to go now. I've got to
all right. Cheers, Nora. Ta-da. 0345 6060 973. The Saltburn synopsis. Well, is this going to tell me what happens in the film? You can't. No spoiler alerts, surely. I'm not going to read that. People get ruined for them. They wanted me to tell you. It's not... Okay, music information coming. It's not a spoiler. Right, Saltburn synopsis. In autumn 2006, scholarship student Oliver Quick attends the University of Oxford. It sounds a bit like the bloke who did Downton Abbey. I think I'm over all that. But my TV recording device was absolutely stuffed full of The Gilded Age, which I must have read a good thing about and then put on series record. And about half of its brain was stuffed with about 2 series worth of The Gilded Age. And I thought, Christmas comes around and there's all this stuff that you want to tape, and it didn't have any room on it. So I thought, well, okay, I'll watch The Gilded Age to see if it's something I want to actually look at. And it took me about 10 seconds to figure out that it wasn't, and I deleted the entire lot of them. It's, it's all that Downton Abbey stuff, Handbag, that stuff. No thanks, I'm over that now.
This is LBC with Nick Abbott. Call 0345 6060 973. Tweet at LBC. Text 84850.
Right, so what are we doing?
Given we are doing a radio show, but it does remind me that I do a podcast with Carol McGiffin, which is called What Is Your Problem with Nick and Carol.
Oh, right, yeah.
Now, the idea is that we try to solve people's problems. Do you have a dilemma that you want the professionals to have a bash at? Well, simply send it to the following address, nickandcarol@global.com. nickandcarol@global.com, and prepare for total satisfaction.
Oh, right, yeah.
Ask for it by name on an internet near you. What's your problem with Nick and Carol? We're almost up to episode 200.
What?
Yeah, 200 episodes. It's not going to be the one coming out next, but it might be the one after that. I'll have to check. Leave it with me. But there are almost 200 episodes up there, and we're taping tomorrow. We are taping our big comeback special, having had a little lie down over the Christmas period. And we're going to come back with 2 episodes a week now. So, we're going to need a lot more dilemmas. So it's nickandcarol@global.com if you want us to try and solve your problem. Not like you've found a lump, not that kind of problem, but something that we can get our teeth into. An issue that you want, somebody's advice about. nickandcarol@global.com, and the website, the podcast is called What's Your Problem with Nick and Carol. Dan texts, Nick, the chavs are wearing fake Burberry. It's 2 fingers up to the well-to-do. The brands don't like to draw attention to it, lest it undermine their prices in Kensington and Chelsea. Well, the brands are absolutely blooming furious about it. And the amount of money they spend in order to try to get their make their products exclusive. I mean, just to do out one of their shops, you know, they'll take a store that's just bare bones, just wall and floor, and they'll spend £1 million on tarting up the inside of a shop. So no wonder their stuff costs so much. And then you got hordes of oiks who are wearing fake versions of it. It must drive them nuts. This text says, we shouldn't have to fact-check elected officials. Yes, that's right. We shouldn't. It's a disgrace.
That is a disgrace.
Just don't believe anything they say and fact-check it afterwards, you know, to save time. And Andy in Bristol says, with all these elections by this Parliament, it's with all these by-elections, this Parliament is like a backwards clown car. 80 Tory MPs pile in, and at the end the door opens and 3 disoriented clowns pop out shouting about 30p meals in Rwanda. The audience is left stunned and wondering where the funny guy with the floppy hair went, who picked their pockets while they were distracted.
Yeah. Wait.
Yeah, he's writing dopey articles for the Mail. And I wonder if he's actually doing that. I mean, he's just phoning it in at this point. The amount of money they spent, I bet they're furious too. Blimey, Edwina Curry popped up. You remember Edwina Curry, don't you? No, tried to forget her, I bet. Ex-Tory MP Edwina Curry has hit out at doctors striking. Doctors strike action over pay. Furious about it. She claims... Every now and again, one of these people will come out with something and you just think, oh, really? I thought that you had already turned it up to 11, but you've found another level. Edwina Curry, ex-Tory MP, said staff on picket lines, doctors, do not care about their patients. Yes, that's right, Edwina Curry. The people who dreamed of being a doctor at school and they took the right courses and worked hard to get the results they needed to go to university and study their faces off while racking up massive debts for doing so only to fall in love with money and stop doing the caring thing that they'd given their whole life to doing. And yeah, that must sound like a very believable thing to the sort of person that used to be a Conservative MP. Edwina Curry, she's a former health minister, if you can believe that. She said junior doctors should feel valued by the smiles on the faces of the people that they're able to help, not by looking at their pay packet. She actually said that out loud. Work for smiles. Maybe we should pay MPs in smiles. They'd starve to death. From today, junior doctors are staging the longest ever strike in the history of the NHS, which is going to last for 6 days. And Edwina Curry criticised junior doctors striking over pay, claiming that's not how success is really measured when you're in the caring professions. Yeah, that's right. But you measure your success by how much you are valued, perhaps. And it's not much. About half the value of a plumber who comes to fix your tap, or an electrician who comes to fix your switch. It's actually not even half. I mean, you couldn't get a plumber for less than... I haven't asked one to come over in a while, but shall we say 60 quid an hour? That's over 3 times what we're paying junior doctors. Electricians, ditto, who come over to fix your switch. And neither of those, by the way, will have £50,000 or £100,000 worth of debts that they've accrued for paying for their training, and neither of which actually saved lives. This is the same Edwina Curry who said, good Christian people don't get AIDS. It's the same Edwina Curry who made Jimmy Savile chairman of Broadmoor Psychiatric Hospital. It's the same Edwina Curry who advised the elderly who couldn't afford their heating bills to wear an extra layer and said that northerners die of ignorance and chips. So, please tell us again how concerned you are for the elderly and the sick, Edwina Curry. I mean, why is anybody paying attention to these people? On television, she said this. She said success in the caring professions is measured in how you look after people, not in terms of money. She said, it seems to me that those people on the picket line, those trade union activists on the picket line, they couldn't care very bad word beginning with T and ending in os, about ordinary people, Edwina Curry said. We're the taxpayers as well, she said. We've paid for them to be trained and they're needed there and they're there for a reason. Well, I mean, she's so clueless, it's difficult to know where to start. Taxpayers don't pay for doctors to be trained. They pay for that themselves by taking out loans that they must pay back. There are grants that the government gives to cover the cost of some of the training, which goes to the hospitals or the universities. And they have to pay for their exams, and they have to pay for their membership of the General Medical Council, and on and on and on. Whereas, correct me if I'm wrong, but an MP's starting salary is 3 times that of a junior doctor, and an MP doesn't have to study anything at all. Or know anything at all. Isn't that right, Smug?
I don't know anything.
See? Normally I would try to be amused, but I think I've decided to be appalled. Jason says, Oi, Nick, what about a dog called Woke? Feed it tofu and mashed avocado. No, don't do that to a dog. It says, hello, Nick, another fascinating insight. It's impossible for most people to lick their own elbow. Please don't attempt this in the studio. No one can lick their own elbow. And Albert in Croydon says, will the Elvis hologram get its own dressing room? It all seems a bit creepy, dragging the dead back to do a show. Yeah, although that's going to be a big thing. I mean, so much money. Bands, I mean, Kiss is probably going to be the next band to do it because, they can put, old men can put the makeup on and you can digital a youthful physique around them. And they'll be playing forever, like the Abbot thing, which is an amazing show. It really is. I still don't quite know what I was looking at. But I remember being impressed hugely and thinking, this is the future. Every band on earth is going to do this now. 0345 6060 973. Glasgow. Hello, Frankie.
Nick, how you doing, my
Good,
pal?
thanks.
Happy New Year and all that
Happy
nonsense.
New Year.
No, I know that couple. The A to Z, I didn't think it could get any better, but it was absolutely brilliant. It was. Every year we say the same thing, as avid fans. We go,
yeah,
it couldn't get better than last year, but it just gets better all the time.
Well, if you missed any of it, those shows are available as podcasts. If you've got a stupid smart speaker,
Nick,
the magic phrase is play Nick Abbott, the whole show podcast, Frankie.
No.
I'm just telling you, that's all. I'm just telling you.
Right,
They're all
okay.
available as podcasts. Nick Abbott, the whole show podcast.
Right, can I get my point?
It's on Global Player.
But I know that. It's not raining in Glasgow.
What?
It's not raining.
I looked this up yesterday, and
I know. But I think it's because the rain's froze. It's cold.
Mist is what it says. You got mist all day long.
That means the rain's misted.
Well, it's going to be like walking through a car wash, kind of.
Aye.
The wet will be coming from all around, but not necessarily falling from top to bottom.
So how long are we going to be getting rained on for about? Is it probably Feb? No, that's asking too much. February.
Until Friday the 19th, it does not look like it's going to rain in Glasgow.
Oh, that's not bad, Nick. I'll take it every day of the week.
Absolutely amazing. The next 2 weeks, there is no predicted rain. In fact, next week, sun. From the 16th onwards, it will be sunny. Yeah.
That sounds all right. But anyway, my main point is we need the Donny back. No as a president, but just for a laugh. No,
Donny?
that was my main point. But we need to get a Don.
No.
The Donald.
No.
No, but Nick, when he get bumped, we lost that humour, you know what I mean? It was just, we miss all his insanity. But I suppose us risking just for the sake of the show his insanity and world security is
right.
kind of,
Exactly.
No, but I'm just, life's too short.
All you have to do, Frankie, is just pay attention. He's still giving out the insanity because his dingling fans keep showing up for his safe space rallies. It's still there. It's just that he doesn't have very much power at the moment. But and that's the way it should stay for the benefit of humankind. You know that's true.
Well, that is very true. And I watched again. I found a 4, and it. No matter how many times you watch it, AC/DC at Buenos Aires, Nick, it just gets better.
Are you talking about AC/DC at River
Plate? You've watched a movie 100 times and you go, "Oh, I missed that bit."
Yeah, always. Mm-hmm.
Brian Johnson apparently said that he actually got scared when he walked in because he's got the big stage where he walks in. And
I heard that they were frightened for their lives. I've heard that they were frightened for their lives trying to get out of there, and I can understand that. One more time, if you haven't seen that, then it is definitely worth checking it out on the World Wide Web. AC/DC at River Plate. I've mentioned that frequently. You will never have seen a crowd act like that, ever, anywhere. Believe me. AC/DC at River Plate. It's on YouTube. Hey, Frankie, got to go. Thanks for that. 0345 6060 973. Heston, Isaac.
Hello, Nick. How are you?
Good, thanks.
Yeah, right. I don't wish to bore you, but I've been doing some more studies on Canadian pension funds investing in UK waters. Right.
And you don't want to bore me, okay?
Okay. Anyway, so I've come to I'll try and keep it short because I know time is short. I've come to a conclusion because I'm thinking, hang on a second. If Canadian pension fund is investing in UK waters, then are Canadian pensioners and soon-to-be pensioners benefiting? Do you know what I mean? And if they're not benefiting, are the owners of the fund benefiting? Do you know what I mean? So here in the UK, we're paying high water prices. They're going to a Canadian pension fund with two potential beneficiaries, right?
Right.
The people who own and run the fund and Canadian pensioners.
Yes.
You know, so therefore,
neither of which include us.
Exactly.
Bingo.
Yeah, exactly. So now I'm wondering, okay, to finish off quickly, would it be possible, for UK water companies and the people who pay their bills to buy a Canadian pension fund so we can get the money coming back the other way? Now there's a thought.
Well, it's a long way round to getting our own money back, but in the absence of any other options, I guess it's worth a go.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah, I just wanted to mention that to you anyway. So anyway, I'll continue my studies and have a report on your desk soon, right?
Well, I look forward to that happening. Thanks a lot, Isaac.
This is LBC with Nick Abbot. Call 0345 6060 973. Tweet at LBC. Text 84850.
Come on, we're running late.
We are running late. Now, I wanted to get this in. It's about the NHS. Now, you know that they have a strike going at the moment because the government refuses to give them the absolute minimum that a junior doctor deserves. And when they say junior doctor, it just makes it sound like there's some kid who's handing out sweeties. But they've already studied like 5 or 6 years before they become a junior doctor, and they racked up debts of up to £100,000 in doing so. So these are not completely ignorant people, and you are most likely to be treated by a junior doctor if you show up at hospital, because they're the most numerous people there. The consultants, they're at home. They're on call right enough, but a junior doctor would be best advised not to call them up, and they're fearful of doing so, unless they get shouted at by their boss. So it's junior doctors who are going to save your life. And this sort of campaign of harassment and denigration that seems to be coordinated between the government and the right-wing press that does their bidding. It's just extraordinary. The NHS is going to begin logging evidence of the harm caused to patients by striking junior doctors. That's the headline. Officials have already warned that the impact of the 6-day walkout could be felt for weeks and months, with up to 200,000 operations and appointments cancelled. And they're very, very angry about it. Now they're interested in logging the harm caused to patients. Do you know how much the hospital waiting lists have risen under the regime since they took power 14 years ago? It went from 2 million, as the Labour Party left office, to over 4 million before COVID. So it's not COVID that did this. And now it's a record high of over 6 million people. Nothing to do with the doctors striking. That part is just the last bit. 200,000 is what they're saying. Up to 200,000 operations or appointments cancelled. If that is a figure we can believe. I've decided not to believe a single word they say about anything, but let's go ahead and believe that. It sounds like it'll be a generous outside figure. 200,000. Right, well, what about the 6 million? They're concentrating on the 200,000? Under strike proposals, or protocols rather, hospital trusts can ask the British Medical Association to allow medics to return to work if staff shortages are compromising patient safety. Well, that's reasonable. But the union behind the walkout has rejected more than a dozen of these requests since their latest walkout began on Wednesday, and they've accepted just one. Now, their reasoning is that the health service is attempting to undermine its strike. And they've got justification for saying that, because there was that incident that I was talking about the other day, when they were called back for emergency cover, only to show up and then realise that there was actually nothing for them to do because there was no emergency. The hospital was just trying it on. And ask yourself, is that exactly what this regime would do to break the strikes? Play games. In a furious response, NHS chiefs told the British Medical Association it would now evidence harm and near misses which might have been avoided in all hospitals where requests for junior doctors to return to work were rejected. So this is what they're holding over them now. I'm prepared to pay them 20 quid an hour. They are now threatening to essentially ruin their reputation by listing all of the problems that are caused by doctors striking. Now, they've had just over 20 requests. Now, these are called derogations. The 20 derogations that have been made by hospitals calling on doctors to return to work because they're saying, we're overwhelmed, people are in danger of getting injured or worse, so please, pretty please with sugar on top, come back and sort these people out. That's called a derogation. And there's been 20 of them. Now, the union accused NHS bosses of undermining this process, this derogation process, by submitting requests in advance of the strike. Like they can see into the future. And suggested that these requests, these derogation requests, were being made due to political pressure. Just think, what would Slippery Fishy do? Exactly. How can they know that there's an emergency days before it actually happens? It's gaslighting, mendacity and cover-ups at every level. Or as he would say...
This government will have integrity at every level.
Yeah, every level. He's gripping it. So now they're getting they're getting serious. The hospitals, the NHS, the government. Hospitals are going to record every safety incident logged during the action. It's going to go on their permanent record. And the quote is, so that we can evidence harm and near misses which might have been avoided. That's what the NHS management is saying. But, you know, in the normal course of events, you are harmed by the incompetence of management. And if that's the case, then those incidents are secret, not in the public interest. They don't get recorded. And you might think I'm exaggerating, but this is from June last year. There is a culture of cover-up in the NHS and ingrained defensiveness when it comes to patients being harmed or suffering avoidable death. So said the Health Ombudsman, as he published a damning report from June last year. See, I'm not exaggerating. The danger that you might have going into hospital is not from junior doctors standing on a picket line, it's from the incompetence of the management who are running the show. Bob Behrens, the Health Service Ombudsman for England, pointed to what he called a gaping hole between policies aimed at improving patient safety and real-life experience on the ground, with hospitals, he said, routinely failing to accept their errors. These are the same hospitals who are now making notes and recording what they say is every negative outcome for junior doctors striking. The same ones as cover up the evidence of their own mistakes. I mean, I don't recognise this country anymore, do you? The report found the physical harm patients suffer following mistakes is often made worse by inadequate, defensive and insensitive responses from NHS trusts. Now, what does that remind you of? That rhymes with the post office. He said some NHS trusts delay their replies for months or years. He said there is a culture of cover-up. There's no point pretending that everybody is nice and does the right thing. Talking to management. And that's just fine for this lot in power. I mean, did they issue a government crackdown, a cross-party investigation, action on the ground? Is the government gripping it? Nothing. Nothing at all. But now that some of the least valued people in society, junior doctors, are taking action that, while helping themselves to make a living, might also save what's left of our NHS by stopping the brain drain to better run countries. Now the NHS trusts and the government have got their notepads out and are going to publicise every single little thing that goes wrong. I mean, is anybody else saying this stuff, or is it just me? I mean, is everybody else in the media just parroting the same old lines about doctors are being greedy to want a 35% pay rise, when what they're talking about is a rise from £15 an hour to £20 an hour, to be paid after 5 years of training, about the same as a cashier in Tesco's? You've got to keep your wits around you at all times and don't believe a word that anybody says. Always fact check. 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 Always fact check.